Hi guys, and welcome to a new Dawn. I am Dawn, and this is part 2 of closing the chapter. So for context, if you haven't already, go back and review the series called Enough. There are 3 parts. If you're new here, welcome. To those who have seen my previous videos, thank you for coming back. If you've ever been in a domestic abuse situation or know someone who has, or if you're going through it yourself now, one of the things that I learned after the fact is that the most dangerous time for the victim is when you're ready to leave. And I didn't know that before. I heard it after the fact, but I experienced it. Again, as always, me sharing my story is really to help someone. So if me sharing my experience helps you prepare, if me sharing my experience gives you the courage, if me sharing my experience allows you to relate to someone, maybe looks like you, maybe is similar to you, maybe is going through the same thing that you're going through, and it provides you some motivation, if it gives you the will to take your power back, if it allows you to know that you deserve better, that's enough. That's enough for me. That's my goal. I will say this 100 times daily. I have an amazing support system, but when I was going through my garbage, I didn't want them to know. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed, and I didn't want to be judged. It's important for me to continue telling my story because number 1, it is healing. But number 2, you may find that you're really in the same situation. You don't want to tell your friends. You don't want to tell your family. You're afraid. You're embarrassed. You're ashamed. If listening to me is a way for you to connect, by all means, listen to me on repeat. But also know that the people who love you, and they will help you. They will be there when you need them. So no matter how ashamed you are, no matter how embarrassed you are, no matter how much you think they're going to judge you, they're going to treat you differently, they're not. That person that you're with is controlling a situation. They're controlling you, they're manipulating you, and they want you to think they're all you got. They want to isolate you if they haven't already done so from the people who love you and care about you the most, so that they can continue to do what they want to do with you. But I am here to tell you, your support system is there, and whenever you need them, they will show up. So this part in the series is called 7 weeks. And 7 weeks is significant because it took me 7 weeks to close my affairs. It took me 7 weeks to go back to my home in Houston, to wrap up my business, to get this guy completely out of my life, and to be able to come home and move on. Start the healing process and move on. So with that being said, let's get into it. I'm going to start right where I left off. And in closing the chapter, the aftermath, the last part I talked about was my dad reassuring me that he would help me close out my affairs. And he did just that. So we made a plan to go back to Texas. And my dad and I drove. We took 2 days to drive. We stopped I think we stopped at the same hotel that I stayed at on my way up because I was familiar with it. I knew the area. I knew it was a good location. It was a good stopping point for us, about halfway. And then we finished the trip the next day. Also in part 1, I talked about not going to the police. I had never the entire relationship called the police. It didn't even cross my mind to. And I'm gonna sidebar right here. In hindsight, I can admit this now, but one of the reasons why I never went to the police is because in the back of my mind, I was still protecting him. And as crazy as that sounds, I know that some of you out here can relate to that. I cared about him. I had love for him. Although I hated his guts. I literally hated his guts. Toward the end of our relationship, I hated his guts. I still cared about him as a person, and I cared about him as a Black man. And there was a part of me that always felt like, I don't want to be the one to call the police on him. I don't want to be the one to do that to him, right? So I was admittedly still, even though he was repeatedly hurting me, I was putting him and his safety and protecting him over protecting myself. And I can see that for what it is now, but at the time I was going through it, I didn't think anything was wrong with that. Y'all can't see my shirt, but I'm going to take a picture of it and post it at the end of this video. I thought it was appropriate to wear this shirt today because it says protect your peace. That's not something I was doing at the time that I was in this situation. But now I know in hindsight and lessons learned, right? Protecting my peace and protecting my safety is more important than anything. It's more important than anything and anybody. So going back to 7 weeks, the aftermath. My dad and I traveled down to Houston. He convinced me, and I hesitantly say that because as important as it was for me to contact the police for my protection and my safety, again, I still kind of had in the back of my mind, like, I don't want to do that to this guy, right? But I knew it was the only way. I knew it was the only way that I could truly be safe and be able to move on with my life. Everything was in my name. The apartment was in my name. 2 cars were in my name. All the bills were in my name. When I left, he was still in my apartment. I had to get him out. He still had the keys to my car. I wanted to get it back, especially because I was paying for it. But they were my things. So he was not willing to walk away. Well, first of all, I ghosted him. I tried to, but he repeatedly reached out to me. He repeatedly reached out to my family and my friends by any means that he could think of, whether it was text message, a text app, a Google number, email, calling my friends, calling my family. He hacked into my Google account, changed my password, and accessed all my social media so that he could figure out my whereabouts and contact my friends so he could try to find me. After repeated times of me not answering the phone, finally talking to him and telling him, all I want you to do is stop. I literally want you to leave me alone. Walk away. Get out of my house. Give me my car back and walk away. He wouldn't do it. So my dad told me we are going to the police. We get to Houston. We actually stayed in a hotel. I stayed in a hotel for probably 3 or 4 weeks. 3.5 weeks, 3.5, 4 weeks, something like that. We stayed in a hotel because he was still in my house, and my dad wanted to go back, but I was like, no, that's not a good idea. The day we got there, we got a hotel, we made a plan. We got there on a Thursday night. On Friday morning, we woke up. When I went to file a police report, I had been in Cincinnati for probably 3 or 4 weeks. The first thing the police asked me was, why did I wait so long to make a report? It's crazy because it was almost this attitude towards me, like, why are you coming here right now? You know, why are you waiting until right now? You know, almost like we have so many other things to do. Like, why are you waiting until now to say something? Immediately, I said, because I left the state for my safety and I've been in Ohio. The officer's attitude changed. And when I started to tell him what happened, his entire attitude and his demeanor adjusted. He actually ended up being very helpful. He took my statement. He told me they will open up an investigation. And I was talking to him through a window, right? And remember, this is post-COVID, so he made sure to keep his distance. I remember that he came from around the area where he was, like in the back office where they were. He actually talked to me and my dad personally, and he was like, here's what I want you to do. He gave me some great advice. He actually told me that I can get out of my lease and I don't have to pay for anything. He gave me a copy of a statement that he wrote with his signature on it and said, give this to your apartment complex. Tell them you've been in a domestic abuse situation and you need to get out of your lease. They'll let you out. If they have a problem, have them call me. I told him that I wanted to also get a police escort to my home because he was still there and I wanted to go in and get some of my things. And he told me, no problem. I'll make arrangements. I'll send an escort out. they were quite busy. He was honest. He said, there are some other things that take top priority over this case, but I'm going to have somebody come out as soon as possible. It took about an hour. So it was fine. We got something to eat. We stopped and made sure we had gas in the car. Me and my dad just really kind of came up with a plan. Both of our anxiety levels were through the roof. I mean, just sky high. So we were just trying to do everything that we could to stay calm. Finally, police officer comes out. He, again, was quite rude, but after he asked some questions and I told him the situation, his demeanor changed. His whole entire demeanor changed, and he was actually quite helpful. He walked me, he escorted me to my home. My ex was not there at the time. He told me before we walked in, make sure you take pictures of everything. And that's exactly what I did. He said, grab what you can, only get the things that are important, what you think you need, but take pictures of everything. So I did. My house was in complete disarray. We had 3 TVs in the home at the time. 2 of them were mine, and they were mounted on the wall, one in the living room and one in the bedroom. The one in the bedroom wasn't mounted, but it was on the floor face down in the bedroom. The one that was on the wall was on the floor face down. I think it had some damage to it. There was stuff all over the floor. My clothes, my clothes that were in the closet was all of my shirts. They had been bleached. So when I came back originally, before I left town, those clothes were on the floor and some other clothes were on the floor. When I came back this time, my closet was almost empty. The clothes that were bleached and on the floor, they weren't there. I believe my shoes were still there, but I had a couple of trunks full of like clothes and memories, photo albums. I'm in a sorority. I am a Zeta. All of my Zeta paraphernalia was gone. Everything from the beginning to the end that I had accumulated. The things that I bought, the things that were gifted to me, the things that were made for me, all gone. Pictures, photo albums, gone. Everything that I had in my closet was gone except for my shoes. The clothes that I had in my drawers were thrown around the room. They were in piles. They were all over the place. I never really went into the kitchen. I think my dad went into the kitchen and took pictures. I went into the dining room area, which is near the kitchen. At the time, I had turned the dining room into my home office. So I took my laptop with me, but I had 2 monitors that I worked from at home. They were gone. I remember like my desk, like there was just stuff thrown all over the place. My laptop bag I think was missing. I don't remember what the kitchen looked like. So we took pictures. I really wasn't there for more than about like 10-15 minutes or so. So I packed up a little suitcase and we left. So I asked the officer about my car. And remember, we had an agreement when we bought the car, but he didn't stick to the agreement, and the car was in my name and I was making all the payments. The officer did tell me that because I let him drive my car, I could not just report it as stolen. But he did tell me what to do. He told me I need to send a certified letter to him and send it to the last known address I have. So if that's my address, that's where I send it to. I sent a certified letter to him. He told me exactly what to say. He said, you need to request that he give you your car back, your keys back. Tell him he can leave them at a, disclosed location, or he can meet your dad to give him back the keys somewhere so that you can remain safe, and give him a time frame. And then let him know if you don't get the keys back in that time frame, you're going to report the car as stolen. So that's what I did. Now, eventually what happened is I did send that letter certified. It went to the mailbox. He had a key to the mailbox, but of course he never checked the mailbox. So he never got the letter. He did eventually make arrangements to give me my car back. What happened was something was wrong with the car and he put it in the shop, but he never went to go pick it back up. So he left the keys there and he told the guy that I would come pick it up, but I had to pay to get it out. It wasn't cheap. So back to that day. So we filed a police report. The other officer comes to help me get some of my things out of the house, and then he tells me what to do in order to get my car back. So from there, me and my dad leave. We go stay in a hotel. I hadn't talked to my ex, so he didn't know I was on my way back to Houston. He emailed my job. And when he emailed my job, because I took a couple of days off, my away message came back to him. And my away message had my new phone number, and the number that I changed my number to, he got it. How did he get my work email address, you ask? Good question. He had been going through my things. So the whole time I was gone, he was going through my things, and he went through my work things and found my business cards. I never could figure out initially how he got my best friend's phone number and my nephew's phone number, and I figured it out when I went back to my apartment. In one of my planners, I had important contacts, right? So I had my family phone numbers, my best friend's phone number. That's how he was able to get in touch with them. That's how he found my email address. He emailed me a letter like this. I don't remember what it said at the time, but I remember because I was keeping a stalking log that I added that to the list. I got several more messages from him to my work email address. So many, in fact, that I had to work with my IT department to have my corporate email address changed. So I wanted to also mention that same time where we went back to my apartment with the police escort, remember the other gentleman, the detective that I spoke to originally, had told me, here's how I can get out of my lease. The police officers in the apartment complex actually very much let me know there was no way for me to get him out because I allowed him to stay there. But they will term the lease, and then it becomes a different situation if he's still in the apartment after I've already termed and moved out. Again, it never came to that because he eventually left on his own. The other thing that happened when I talked to the detective, he ended up calling me back. He ended up, after we left the police station, he called me back like 2 times to ask me again some identifying information. So in the report, they asked me about his last known address. They asked me where he worked, if I know that address, if I knew any close family's address. They would look for him, but they cannot without last known address. I actually had a social security number, so that really helped. He called me back to verify his middle name, and then he called me back once more to just give me some additional advice. I can't remember exactly what it was at the time, but it was something about, here's what else you need to do as far as with the lease and getting your car back. He told me that they would send the information, my statement, over to their family violence unit, I think it's called, and someone would be contacting me. So we wait. We go back to the apartment. We go back to the hotel. We're living in the hotel. We're living in the hotel and waiting for him to get out, return the keys. We're waiting for him to return my car keys so I can go back in and get my things. And he would not. He was refusing. He actually sent my dad 2 or 3 text messages while we were down there, and they were nasty. And when I say nasty, I mean like cussing at him and calling him names and just being completely disrespectful. And the whole time I'm telling my dad, don't engage. I'm building this case. Don't engage with him. One message he sent was just completely off the rails. And I finally told my dad, like, you know what? Do what you got to do. He opened the door. Do what you gotta do. You could say whatever you want to say to him back. Just whenever you respond to him, block his number. Don't keep going, because that's what he wants, right? He wanna get you worked up. He wants to have the last say. He wants to get under my skin by getting at you, right? Anyway, we go back to the hotel. I'm living there for 3 weeks. We are doing everything to try to remain anonymous. I don't go back to my apartment. I have my car and I'm still working. I'm going into the office every day, but I actually have my dad drive me to work and come pick me up every day. I didn't want him to come to my job and see my car to confirm that I was there and then try something, right? A couple weeks go by and eventually he decides he would give up. Again, the car was in the shop. He told me the car was in the shop and he asked me about helping him pay to get it out. But he wanted to take the car with him. And of Of course, I didn't agree to that because I wanted the car back. So what happened was he didn't pay anything for the car to get out of the shop. He left it there and left me with the bill. He did move out. He got whatever he wanted to take, and eventually my dad and I went back to my apartment. And when we went back, it was in worse condition than it was the first time I went. And there were things missing. So one of the TVs was gone. And I think I mentioned that the TV in the living room was damaged. That's not true. It was the TV in the bedroom, the smaller TV, that had damage. The bigger TV that was in the bedroom, he took it with him. He took my deep fryer. The kitchen, I didn't see the kitchen right away. The day that I went back to the apartment, I was able to talk to the rental office, and I told them I knew he was moving out, and I asked them if they could change the locks. So they went in and changed the locks. They allowed my dad to come and pick up the key, and he went to the apartment while I was at work. He actually cleaned the kitchen before I got home, so I never saw the kitchen, but I heard it was disgusting. The house, there was just stuff everywhere. It was like complete disarray. He hadn't done anything to the apartment since the day I walked out. So from the point we got back into the apartment, it then became Operation Get Don Home. I did not want to be there. I had a lot of anxiety being there. They hadn't caught up with him yet. So he had not been arrested. It just took them a while to find him. So I was on pins and needles the whole time, and I just couldn't wait to get out. Meanwhile, I hadn't talked to the detective yet, and I was beginning to get frustrated because I thought, why aren't they helping me? One day I finally get a call from the police department, and they gave me a number to the unit that would be handling my case. I called them, and they told me I need to come over and file a statement. When I talked to that detective, he had the same kind of not so nice and not so willing to help demeanor as the other officers, kind of like, why are you just now saying something? Well, he told me to write a statement. I remember just feeling like, this is so much, right? Like, people are supposed to be in these positions to help you, and I don't feel like you're helping me at all. In fact, I feel like you're judging me. I feel like you don't want to help me. I feel like you think it's my fault. And I feel like you think I'm just a number, right? And I feel like you think I'm not educated, because he told me to fill out a statement. He told me exactly what I need to do. And he kept repeating himself, saying that I need to make sure I only talk about this particular night. Don't put anything else in there. And I'm like thinking to myself, okay, I got it. He told me fill out this front if you need more room. Fill it out on the back. Here's a couple extra pieces of paper, and just left me in the room. And I remember my attitude was it just turned so sour, because I just felt like this guy's not really going to help me. But I wrote my statement. And what they don't know, I can write. I wrote my statement, and I wrote everything that happened that day, from the point of that incident until the time I left. When that detective came back and read my statement, I remember him telling me, this is good. This is exactly what I wanted you to do. And then he asked me a couple questions about my statement. And because I had put in my statement that my ex jumped on top of me, straddled me, and strangled me, he put 2 hands around my neck. The detective told me, was I sure that that's what he did? Because if he did, I need to also complete a strangulation assessment. And the purpose of a strangulation assessment is to determine how dangerous this person is to me. So, of course, I said, yes, that's true. And yes, I will fill out the strangulation assessment. He tells me, this guy is a danger to you, and my job is to make sure I do everything possible to protect you. So from that point, they issue an emergency order of protection. But they had to serve him. I remember they couldn't find him. I'm not exactly sure how long it took, but I do remember we are back in the apartment, and I don't remember hearing anything. And I just remember getting so frustrated and thinking, it's not going anywhere, and I don't want to stay here anymore. So I called my brother, my sister, and my mom, and I made a plan to get home. I just set a date, and I was like, whether I hear back from them or not, I'm not staying here, right? They can call me. And from there, it was go time. I think I probably had about 2 weeks. Of course, I had to make arrangements to pack up my apartment. I just, contacted some of my friends to see if they could help me. There was a lot of stuff that I threw out, but there were a lot of things that I kept. And every day I went to work. I come home, I pack up a little more. Me and my dad would clean the house. We would decide what I was keeping, what I was throwing out. Time is going by and I'm still not hearing anything. So there was one other thing that I wanted to mention before I wrap up. When we went back to the apartment, again, remember, I didn't know where he was. My dad and I basically barricaded ourselves in the house. So every night we would lock ourselves in. My dad would push the furniture in front of the door to block the door, and he slept on the couch. I had a recliner. And every day I would get up and go to work. This whole time, I had not heard anything from the detectives. I hadn't heard anything from the police. I had reached out to a local DV agency. I hadn't heard anything from them. So I was just getting frustrated. And I thought, again, I'm just ready to be done. I'm ready to go home. Whether they reach out to me or not, I'm getting out of here. Again, Operation Get Me Home. I think it was a day or two before my brother and sister were to come down. I finally get a phone call from the DA's office, and they told me that they were able to find him. They were able to find him. He was arrested. What essentially was going to happen was that they had requested to put an emergency order of protection in place, and they were going to be able to do that at this point. The emergency order of protection, I think, was good for 30 or 60 days, but I do remember him telling me they were going to ask for an extended time, and then they would contact me for next steps. I remember having like such a sense of relief because I didn't think anything was going on. I didn't think they were doing anything to try to help me. And when I talked to them, the detective ended up, not the detective, someone from the DA's office actually called me. He asked me, was I safe? I was already planning to move, but I told him that I didn't feel safe in my home because I wasn't sure where he was. And he told me that they could offer to put cameras outside the apartment, but I was leaving within 2 days. So I thought, that wouldn't make any sense at this point. So my move out day comes. We are able to get my things out. The movers load me up. My brother and sister were actually planning to come into town on a flight that night, and they were going to help us drive back. Oh, I also forgot to mention, I sold the cars. I traded both cars in. The car actually ended up coming in about 3 or 4 days before we got on the road too. So I got a brand new car. The plan was I would load up the U-Haul. My brother and sister would come down here. My dad and my brother drive the U-Haul back. Me and my sister would drive the car back. And we would, kind of switch off as we needed to. We stopped again in Tennessee on the way back, and then drove from Tennessee to Ohio. What ended up coming of it, and I mentioned this in another video, it took from August of 2021 to December to actually go to court for the order of protection. It's crazy because the very day that the temporary order of protection expired, it was 1 day before court. And I remember someone made a purchase on my Prime account, and then I got this odd text message, and I knew it was him. It was kind of like, I found you, and mind you, I changed my number again. I changed my number in August, and the day before court, I got a random message. So we had court for the order of protection, and he agreed to a 10-year order of protection. So he cannot come near me. He cannot contact me. No, it doesn't matter where I'm at. Doesn't matter what state. Doesn't matter if I'm at home, at work, anywhere. He cannot have a friend or family member try to reach out to me on his behalf, and he can also not contact my family trying to reach out to me. So that's in place for 10 years. They did tell me that in the state of Texas, the strangulation is a felony offense. So they told me that it was like a minimum time that he could get. What ended up happening with the criminal case is that the agreement, I guess, was that he got 3 years probation. And I mentioned this before again, there's a laundry list of things that he has to abide by. Otherwise, I think he is facing up to 8 years in jail. So that's that. The last time I physically saw him in person was the day I walked out. I saw him one more time when we did the order of protection. I did not have to physically be in court. They were doing everything on Zoom. I did not have to be involved in a criminal case, so I didn't have to appear in court. I didn't have to testify or anything. I did actually write a victim impact statement, and they told me that would suffice. So I didn't have to show up to court for the criminal charges. That's it, guys. That really concludes enough and my mini series of closing the chapter. I definitely appreciate y'all listening. I know it is a lot. It's a lot. It was a lot for me to deal with. It's still, talking about it brings up some really sore and tough memories. I do have to give a shout out to my friends and family. You know who you are that helped me. One of my cousins helped me pay rent for 1 month when I left. So I thank you. I love you. You know that I love you, but I will never forget that you helped me that way. My family was just incredible during the time. My good girlfriends, my petty puff girls, again, they held me down. They gathered some funds for me on my way back home. They just were a very phenomenal support system for me, and they still are. My best friend, talked to her as much as I could. She's just always been there for me. She's my best friend. It goes without saying. My other good girlfriend who lived in Dallas at the time that I was going through my situation, I couldn't see her or talk to her physically every day, but she introduced me to Marco Polo, and Marco Polo was a lifesaver for me because I could talk to her without having to talk to her. I could leave her a message and she could hear it when she wanted to, and she could respond back when she was able to. For her, it was a way for her to know that I was still safe, but for me, it was a way to help me get through it. I also did Talkspace, which is virtual platform for therapy. That actually was amazing too. I started doing Talkspace when I was living in the hotel because I needed somebody to talk to. I needed somebody to vent. And the wonderful thing about Talkspace is I didn't have to be on the phone. I could text. A lot of things went into helping me get through that time. It was very rough. But again, I've said it before, some really amazing things have happened in my life since then, and I do intend to share. So again, thank you for listening. I hope this message reaches someone. I hope it touches someone. I hope that you know you deserve better. If you are in a situation that's similar to mine, no matter to the degree of it, abuse is abuse is abuse is abuse, and it's not okay. So get out now while you can. Know that somebody out there loves you. You deserve to be loved and treated like someone loves you, and your life is more important than anything. So on that note, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all want to hear next. Let me know what you want to talk about next. I appreciate you. I love you guys, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.